before we do anything else, I just want to give each of y'all a minute to introduce yourselves. First, I'd just love to hear a little bit about what your work is about. Describe your work to us, share who you are, and what are the main ways in which you all participate as artists or culture makers in our economy. And also, I know some of y'all have shows up right now and or recently. Tell us about where to see it. And we'll start with Darryl.
All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Darryl Ratcliff. I'm visiting here from Dallas, Texas, home of the Caddo and Wichita peoples. And I'm an artist and poet and writer, entrepreneur, a multi-hyphenate. My practice is conceptual based, community engaged. I'm really focused on helping communities be healthy and whole and tell their true narratives and engage civically. I am a co-founder of a space called Ash Studios, where my creative partner Fred Villanueva is a artist-owned and run Black Latino space in Dallas and South Dallas in particular. That's about to turn 11 years old in November. I am also a co-founder of Black Arts DFW and co-founder of Gossypion Investments, which is trying to help evolve the role of culture in society, and particularly as a response to a decade worth of organizing and doing things and pushing and kind of realizing, hey, I don't think we actually own a lot of this infrastructure in the cultural world. We don't own the museums, the symphonies, the things like that. And how do we do that?
Cool. Good meeting you, Darryl.
Very nice to meet you.
My name is Tariku Shiferaw. I live in New York. I'm from Los Angeles. I work. Thank you. I work in art. I'm a painter, installation art. Within installation art, I do work in sculpture, sound, and my work deals with mark making a mark. First, engaging the history of painting, or the history of Western painting, should I say. And secondly, just within our societal construct, like how does one, in terms of mark making with painting, the concept of painting, how to mark the surface of a painting, that's just like conversation within the discourse of painting, you know? But secondly, within social constructs, like how does one make a mark, or how does one mark themselves into society? And so then there's a series that I began in 2016 titled One of These Black Boys, which engages, which the mark making happens in the title, really. And so I use titles inspired by music titles from the African diaspora, from like genres like hip hop, R&B, jazz, blues, reggae, Afrobeats. And in doing so, the conversation around art does not just stay within painting for painting's sake or art making for art making's sake, but it gets out of that and it goes into other cultural production systems, knowledge production systems. And in that way, the references go to a lot further than just me or the painter, you know? And so then in a way it engages these histories, you know, like these lyrics that go into other places. Often we've known hip hop to be a genre for, you know, a genre where we describe the joy, the like every moment in life, but also like the struggle life as well, you know, everything else. And hip hop for me being like the reincarnation of like jazz and blues, which also talked about those subtleties in our existence. And so then in using these lyrics, these titles, I refer back to other types of cultural production systems outside of the very known Western art production systems.
Tariku, you have your work up right now.
I do.
Not
Wait,
in,
oh.
right?
I was all like,
In the world. In the world.
I was all like, I did not see a screen when I walked over. Yeah, I have a solo show at Gallery Lalong in Chelsea. I also have my first museum solo at Southampton's African American Museum in the Hamptons. And so if you guys are in either of those places, you can see my work at the moment.
Chelsea, New York.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah.
Chelsea, New York. I'm new to Boston.
Awesome. Thank you, brother. My name is Tomashi. I'm Tomashi Jackson. My name is Tomashi. And I'm a visual artist. I grew up in Los Angeles, California, but I was born in Houston, Texas.
Hey.
So both of my brothers up here, we complete each other.
Mhm.
I've lived in New England and in Massachusetts for 13 years. Is that right? Yeah, I'm an artist. Sometimes I'm an art educator. I've produced a number of books in recent years. I'm the daughter of an operating engineer and a great niece of domestic workers and day laborers from Texas and California. I think that's it. I think that's who I am.
You also have your work up.
Oh right, yeah. I just opened a solo show at the Los Angeles Gallery that represents. I'm represented by Tilton Gallery in New York City, Night Gallery in Los Angeles, and Pilar Carias Gallery in London. And at Night Gallery, we just opened my second solo show there, titled Minute by Minute. You can read about it in the LA Times. An article just dropped in the LA Times about the project.
But you need a subscription to the Times, so can you tell us?
I don't have a subscription.
Right.
I just tap the link and I can open it. I don't have a subscription.
Can't do it. Tell us about the show.
Yeah, my new show is I learned printmaking in undergraduate school. I'm sorry, I'm not more articulate right now. Yeah, I make paintings that are influenced and inspired by printmaking practices. The paintings are stretched onto structures that allow them to protrude from the wall, so they invite consideration as sculpture as well. My new work employs images that I found in my mother's camera. My mother died during the COVID-19 crisis when I couldn't be with her. And she took pictures of trees. The last pictures that I found on her camera were of trees, bark and leaves taken in isolation. And I gained access to those images, and I blew them up. I projected them here in my studio in East Somerville onto surfaces that I made out of materials. And I merged her images with my images of being with people, reuniting with people over this last year coming out of social isolation. My work is, I make my paintings through a research-based methodology that really became refined when I came here to Massachusetts to be a student at MIT. And it allows me to interview people, to ask questions. I'm particularly interested in experiences of people of the global majority in the Hamptons, in the East End of Long Island, Georgia, Ohio. I'm interested in public space because I'm influenced by where we grew up. We grew up in a place with lots of murals, so a big muralist tradition. So I think of my work as public work because the questions always have to do with areas of public concern. My creative partner, one of my main creative partner over the years has been Nia K. Evans, who you guys get here at Boston Ujima Project. But we've worked on a number of public projects together, and I'm influenced by her experience as a policy researcher and analyst. So all of these things, all of this that is happening has influences the way that I make work. And I put that into the paintings, and then the paintings move around into public and private collections. So in that way, the work is public and it moves around without being on a building. But all in all, I'm an artist among artists and a worker among workers. Thanks for having me here.
Yeah. Hi everyone, my name is Lisa Simmons. I work in the film world, so Most of my work now, I was a filmmaker, producer, but most of my work now is exhibition and distribution. So I run the Roxbury International Film Festival. We're 25 years old this year. We are a festival, thank you. We are a festival that celebrates people of color around the world. And our main work is to support storytellers that are deconstructing narratives, that are out there bringing stories to life that don't normally get told. And it's really a mission of ours. We started because there were stories that were only telling one narrative of us, and people were not getting into festivals because they were only telling stories of an urban drama. And the filmmakers here in Boston were telling stories of love, and they were telling experimental stories, and they were not getting in anywhere else. And so we felt like there was a really important opportunity for them to see their work up on the big screen. And so we created a festival for them. And what we didn't understand was it wasn't just for the filmmakers, it was for the audience members. And the audience members realized that what they were seeing wasn't necessarily their story, and what they needed to see was their story. And so we grew from a 10 film festival to an 84 film festival, to filmmakers around the world coming to our festival because we were a filmmaker festival, and understanding that we were about social justice and we were about social change. And so so today we just celebrated our 25th, as I said, and really excited about our opportunities. We are now creating a film fund for independent filmmakers to finish their projects, to be having more of these stories told. We are partnering with a bunch of other programs in the Boston area to support youth filmmakers to be making films around climate change and indigenous populations. We are working to help support curatorial fellowships to help young people learn about the importance of curating films and film programs that support filmmakers. So we're really excited about that. And I have been working, much like you, finding the stories of your mother on a project about the Negro Theater Project that took place in Boston from 1935 to 1939. Boston, which is interestingly enough, was one of the cities that was funded by the federal government to do theater during the WPA. And you think Boston, because Boston is not a city that you would think would be chosen. But Boston was a city that did a lot of theater during that time, Black theater. And there were these Negro theater projects across the country where the federal theater was funded. And my grandfather was the stage manager, and my aunts and uncles were all writers and producers and directors here in Boston. So my aunt left a treasure trove of documents. And so as a documentary filmmaker, I've been making this documentary for 35 years and hope to get it completed at some point. So so that is sort of like my story. I was an actress for a number of years and now went behind the camera because the power really is behind the camera. So there are lots of stories. Boston is very different today than it was 25 years ago when the film festival started. And it's very exciting to see the changes. There's a lot more that needs to be done. There's a lot more support that needs to happen. But it's exciting to see what the possibilities are for Boston to be supporting Black art, Black film, Black people going forward. So I'm hoping that all of you here in this room who are from Boston, even not from Boston, are looking to see the possibilities that are coming out of Boston right now, and to be supporting those possibilities and those artists and those creatives that are really making Boston this incredible livable city right now.
Okay, so the subject of this panel is ownership and what we mean by it, how it relates in the arts and cultural asset ecosystem. But before we get to that, we want to just take a quick show of hands. How many people here self-identify as culture workers, artists, writers, filmmakers? Let's see you.
Bravo!
What? Yes, that's a lot of people. Okay, so how many people here identify as investors? Okay. Finance, in general, business experts. Okay. Lawyers, infrastructure. Okay. So I have to say, as an artist, and I don't know how all y'all feel, but this is very rare that we have artists in a room with people in investing, people in finance, people in infrastructure. And that's sort of half of what we're trying to talk about today. And so I'm just going to go into a quote. I love calling out other artists, and I'm just going to read you an Erykah Badu quote. The music business is motivated by money. Music is motivated by energy and feelings. And this quote always gets me personally because those of us who have had art in our blood from we were, 2 years old, it was in our blood, did not know necessarily what the business was going to be like. And that is not why we went into it. So for those of you on the stage, I would like to hear, some of your, because we are in this room is in the business of naming, putting names to things that often don't get said out loud, so we can look at it in the light and talk about it with some honesty. So let's start with Darryl. When you decided you were going to be an artist, or you discovered it was your blood, it was in your blood, as you went into the industry, your industries, what did you learn about the industries that you did not know when you went in, and how did you find out about it?
Let's see. I would say I'm gonna skip, kind of being young. But there's nice things, that happen before 18. But I would say one of my biggest unfortunate memories was being in Dallas and going into contemporary art galleries and feeling very like they weren't happy to see me there. And just a very kind of physical, hey, are you lost? What's going on? And so there was definitely and then, when we started doing things, we also started getting kicked out of places in Dallas because we were Black and brown and they weren't used to seeing so many Black and brown people there. And so those kind of experiences of a formal contemporary art world that I would say whose mission is to uphold white supremacy is not being happy with us and our stories, and then that motivating the work of Ash and the need to have a safe space. And then a lot of work after that, I guess I can speak a little bit to that, was that at some point you find out you need money to sustain yourself and your practice, and trying to figure out where. I feel like I'm still in the where's the money at? Where do we find it? And I mean, our first step, we found it via our city. We found out that there was an Office of Cultural Affairs, and that they had money, but they wouldn't give it to artists. They would only give it to nonprofits. And then that got me into organizing, and we did successfully create an individual artist program through our city that's since given millions of dollars to artists. And so you figure out you need space, you need funds, and then now, I think we need greater ownership, equity, infrastructure, and more efficient ways to invest into artistic practices. I'll stop there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Lisa, I know you've jumped also between, all of you have, but I know you made that jump and transition from being a maker to a system changer.
Yeah, I mean, I think that when I started, I think for any founder of, it's really about passion. You're like, we got to do this. I mean, I moved from being an actress to understanding that the power is behind the camera and really wanting to network. And when I started, I started a company, actually, the Color Film Collaborative, before the Roxbury International Film Festival, because I really felt like, as an actress, I was just showing up at auditions, and it didn't matter whether I had talent. It just mattered what I looked like. Did I have curly hair that day? Was I dark? Was I light? It didn't matter. It just mattered what they were looking for that day. And I really wanted people to have power in storytelling. So really bringing people together. And so that just networked. It was really just about networking and people coming together to create their own films and their own stories. And it was great. And my partner and I, Michael Trent, said, let's just do this. And we did that, and we started making movies, and directors started to connect with producers, who started to connect to writers, and it was really beautiful. And then we were like, oh my God, we started a company, like, what do we do? And, I was working at a law firm at the time, and, they were great, and they created a 501c3 for us. And then we're like, oh my God, but what does that mean? We're not business people, we're like, we have to file tax. Like, we don't know how to do any of this. We were like, no idea we were creatives, right? And so like all of that comes with that, and you really need to, as creatives, you're not necessarily business people, right? And so it's really important as you're building your board to understand like who you need to help you through that, so that you're successful. So we did that, and then making sure you have the right people with you. So it's really important as you're a creative that you're bringing those business people on, so that you can be sustainable. We ended up disbanding that, and then creating, the Roxbury Film Festival came with that, and that, it's a nonprofit, but now we have a fiscal sponsor. It's much more sustainable in that sense, to be able to do that, so that somebody else is dealing with all that part of it. So it makes it easier. But yeah, I mean, you have to go through those growing pains and understand what's right for you, so that you can support the people that you need to support, and making sure that what your mission is, that you're supporting that mission, and that for us, it really is supporting the artists and supporting the filmmakers, and making sure that works for them.
Mm-hmm. So there's lots of negative things we can say about industry dynamics, but it's not all negative.
No.
How have industry dynamics worked for and against you? And I would love to hear from Tomashi on this.
You are good. You're so smooth. Gosh. I get to enjoy really good working relationships with the people who represent me. And I'm represented now by 3 commercial galleries in 3 cities, and they all happen to be run by women. And I am not the only Black artist on any of the rosters. And so I get to work in a situation with these people, or I don't feel tokenized, and I just feel supported. I work hard, they work hard, we all work hard. And I think a lot about the history of the WPA. I think a lot about the history of the Great Society legislation package that asserted that that created the National Foundation for the Arts, that gives us the National Endowment for the Arts, the National Endowment for the Humanities, National Endowment for the Science. And that prioritized, alongside the Voting Rights Act, the Civil Rights Act, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, infrastructure development, transportation, school desegregation. That nestled inside of all of that was art and culture as a part of what's needed for a society to develop beyond racial terrorism, racism, the terrorism of racism. And so I think all the time about being a kid from the before times, like from the end, when the faucet started to get tightened, when Reaganomics entered and Thatcherism entered, and deprivation and the undoing of all of that became a priority in the political world that touches us all, whether or not we understand how it's working. And so I think a lot about Emory Douglas. I think a lot about what the Panthers were doing when the city of Oakland was not painting crosswalks or feeding children. And then I think about the time before there was like a federal emphasis on cultural development, or restoration. If deprivation leads to a sickened, uneducated society where none of us are safe. So I think a lot about
where we're moving.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. The natural outcome of what began, the backlash to all the policies that sought to kind of do something that wasn't quite so evil, just kind of. So what I appreciate about where I've ended up is that I get to indulge these compulsions that I have to be active in producing space that others can share. You know, like what's on my mind right now a lot is like, how do I share space with members of the conservatory? I'm from public schools. Is that me doing that?
Check.
Maybe that's happening in another room.
Check.
Check.
Check,
See?
check, check, check.
Start talking about the Panthers.
I
They
want to
say
share
check,
space with the
check.
check.
Hey, come
Yeah.
on now.
So like something that I've benefited from that continues to influence me is being a child from our Los Angeles from a public magnet school for performing and visual arts. And then going to a high school for performing and visual arts. So I've been around young actors, young dancers, young musicians, young poets, my entire life. Check. Did you find the MC, James? MC Mystery.
I think I heard what education works for potentially networks, big infrastructure working for grants, public funding, working against gated galleries, working against
But I also think
So-
there's more. I also think there's more also out there. It's also like with film, right? There's more opportunities in distribution now. There's more opportunities in
Distribution.
exhibition now. There's more opportunities for self-distribution. There's more galleries that their women are running. There's more opportunities. 25 years ago, there wasn't that too. There's more opportunities to find your tribe, to find people that are going to be and understand the work that you all are doing, to be able to exhibit that space and understand your work and be willing to make those sacrifices. And same with you, Darryl, to be making those opportunities, right? For you in public spaces and public art, and understand your public art and be unapologetic about it, and be like, we're gonna exhibit your work. We're gonna give you the space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, yes, and so I'm thinking a lot about what's happened before. What happened before before the WPA, which that's even a history that stretches even further back, because the WPA wasn't for us. We just like made it work. But what do? The
Works Progress Administration.
The Works Progress Administration, a part of the New Deal. It was a part of the New Deal to restore the American economy and restore morale after the Great Depression. So what I enjoy about what I get to work on with the galleries that represent me is to use every opportunity that I have to show, which comes around like maybe once every couple of years, because I'm in rosters with other artists. When I get use of the space, I get to invite Chief Atunde Adjoa to the Museum of Contemporary Art Denver to bring his band to play there, or invite my opera director, brilliant friend Alexander Gideon, to direct a piece, to use the gallery space to direct a theatrical piece, while the work is up. We have a baby grand piano in the show at Night Gallery right now. We are hiring Mexican American musicians to come in and play Doobie Brothers songs for my paintings and for my mother. So what are we gonna do wherever we are, wherever I find myself now today, whether it's being responsible for a classroom, being responsible for putting up a show in a gallery, or for facilitating a research process here at the Ratcliff Institute for Advanced Study. How are we gonna facilitate the space with whatever time we have to extend, to welcome in, and to create possibility where it otherwise wouldn't be. So that's what I get to do, and then they sell the work, which is also helpful.
That's perfect segue to the next question.
Yeah, because I don't do that.
You don't do what?
No, I don't sell the work. But when I was a little girl, I did. So I was actually thinking entrepreneurially, if that's a word, when I was in elementary school, because I knew that I could draw really well. It was something that made people stop being mean to me long enough to observe that I could do something that they couldn't.
So at the lunch table, you had little lunch money. You would take their lunch money.
I would take commissions. I would take as a little person, or I would draw on shirts, and I was thinking like that. But as things move forward, I appreciated what you opened us up with, which is that those of us for whom the passion is not a choice. Aren't really engaging, thinking about monetary exchange first. I just want to be a really good artist.
Yeah.
And to do that, to get there, I needed to be mentored, and I needed to be in community. And being in community doesn't always mean being in school, but being in school can be a place to build relationships and build community and find your people. But the artists who mentored me, put me to work, let me clean their tools, helped me taught me how to climb scaffolding, taught me how to paint murals and not be afraid. All of that, like our working class community and cross class communities of creative ecosystem makes it possible for me to continue to move around today.
I'm sort of sensing a little ecosystem actually right now between Tomashi and Tariku.
Yeah.
We actually met like this.
Yeah,
You
on a
went-
panel.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that actually maybe that kind of gets to a question that I wanted to make room for today, which is collaboration in all of its forms, whatever we think it means to collaborate. And we are here, we know the creative side, we don't know the business side, but I have increasingly felt that businesses are also works of art in their own way. Financial systems are also, if we choose to treat them as a work of art. And so I'm curious to hear, in terms of system interventions, I think of Boston Ujima very much as a work of art. And knowing that the two of you have been in community and love, and in the relationship of love with each other for so long, Nia, can I ask you to just start by saying first, like, how has art affected the way that Boston Ujima has been designed?
Can you hear me? Oh, so
Check,
much.
check. Check.
Check. I think it's not on.
I was told the mic's on. Can y'all hear me? Okay. My colleague Sierra is going to answer this with me as well, so it won't
Yeah.
just be me. But I do appreciate the question, Anjali, and I appreciate the notion of Ujima as a system intervention, which I think we definitely identify Ujima as that, and as well as a work of art. That's a great compliment. So yeah, the arts and cultural organizing was built into Ujima from the very beginning. I definitely do want Sierra to talk about how she brought it into Ujima. What I will do is say really quickly, because I do just want to pass off the mic to Sierra. Yeah, it is a function of relationship. Tomashi and I have a 22-year-old friendship. As a result of that friendship and that relationship, 90% of my world is artist. And so I would say as a result of being up close, of ultimately being embraced and welcomed into different communities of artists, but I would say kind of a broad community of artists. I definitely had the ability to move from more of a passive kind of consumer or appreciator of art to understanding artists as people, artists as workers, artists as entrepreneurs, and seeing the difference between, for example, my ability to command a wage for what I do. So you said, where's the money at? The paths that I walked, I knew where to get the money. It was not quite so opaque. So kind of seeing that up close, and seeing this way, artists have this weird role or perception in our culture. I think we look at artists, we appreciate what artists do, and I think of the word gift, and I think of how it's kind of a word that works against them, because we have this notion that it's just there for the taking. These are just magical people who are able to do things that we can't do, and so it's this notion of kind of just what they do appears out of nowhere, poof. But that's not the case. It is a lot of work, and it is a lot of passion, and there's struggle, and there's exploration, and there's searching, and so that should be honored the way it is for all of us. So from the very beginning, we built it into Ujima. Again, understanding artists as people, artists as workers, artists as entrepreneurs. And I'll pass it off to Sierra now.
So, okay, I'm going to try to be really succinct because I also recognize that we want to hear from y'all.
Yes.
I definitely think that Ujima is
Sierra's an artist.
I am an artist.
Mhm.
I have been grateful to be in conversation and in relationship with so many people in this room, which has caused me to go to the next part of my life, which is entering grad school. And I can only do that. And I only did that because I was here and I learned about what social practice was through my work at Ujima. First, as like a baby organizer, not really knowing what I was doing or why I was doing it, but knowing that it needed to exist. Helping with my friend Sarah Rejwa and Jack Skill, starting the arts and culture team, member team here at Ujima. Learning that, you know, like you said, Darryl, that we need money to do things, and that people won't just give you things for free because you have an idea, right? Like learning that very early on, and trying to create a social space in Boston where, you know, I think at the time we wanted to like put advertisements on the sides of buses, and realizing that that costs hundreds of thousands of dollars. And we wanted to like have, you know, a roving exhibition in the public space, right? And realizing that like that could only happen through having access to funds. But, you know, us not going to art school but being artists, we didn't have access to those networks. As Nia said, it was very opaque for us. So as a part of that, we ended up creating something which then became the arts and culture member team. And so when I think about what Ujima has provided for a lot of people, especially like younger artists who have come through as organizers, as culture makers, I'm really thinking about a Black possibility, perhaps like through and against like the white imagination. Like how can we imagine other worlds? And what does that look like? You know, Ujima is necessarily like planning, art making, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, because we have to be malleable and adaptable that way.
So money is obviously a theme, and I know all of you have solutions around money that we need to be hearing. So Tariku, I would love to start with you on this. Knowing that IP and ownership are basically IP ownership and income, right? That's basically how an artist makes money to live. How have you navigated IP ownership and income as an artist? And
Sorry, what's IP?
what like give us some
Intellectual property.
ideas of what we could be all doing differently to do it better for artists, to make it work for artists better.
Sorry, I didn't hear the IP part.
Intellectual property.
Intellectual
got it,
property.
got it.
Sorry,
Okay,
sorry,
my
sorry.
bad. Yeah. Word. Yeah. So I think I think we all hit on it earlier. You mentioned the power is really behind the camera, not in acting, and that is like a really powerful statement because that really works in every industry. Also, being able to own what you do or to dictate your career or your practice for artists. Like you mentioned the quote from Erykah Badu, we think about the art in the most beautiful way without thinking about money or without thinking about like how to get it done. For me, it's been relationships. Really, you know, coming up early in my career, I've always thought, you know, like maybe just skills will get you there, you know. It could be just like really good and someone will notice, but it's really, you know, building relationships. And I've come to realize that there's no I in these like places, in these spaces. You had to start like building community and whatnot. And so so recently, I realized that I never had a book published on this series that I had described earlier, One of These Black Boys. And I was like, I'm done waiting for institutions to come to publish that. And especially when you start seeing other people start, you know, using your language and your you know, intellectual property, then you're like, okay, there needs to be a place of authority that they would have to be forced to refer to in order, like, for like, making something is fine as long as you give credit to like how you got there. So then I was like, how do I do that? And and so then, you know, and also like I've had many articles, news articles written about my practice, but that does not suffice because that's just news, right? Like, you know, people will read that, take that, and make it their own. And so I decided to make a book on that series. In collaboration with just many different people that I had met over the years. First was, I first contacted this graphic designer turned like a small, you know, book company. They're called Frank. Met them in 2017. I was like, hey, I love that you love my work, my practice, you believe in it, want to work with you. They're down. Like they thought about it for a couple of weeks. They're like, we're absolutely down. And I'm like, great. So then there's that like relationship. And then secondly, I was all like, I had a friend. I had done this program called the Whitney Independent Study Program in New York, and I had a friend whom I thought was always like really smart and could be able to give talks on any part of history in the art. And I'm like, whoa, like is it possible for you to write on my work? Her name is Dr. Ayana Dozier, and she's all like, absolutely. And then I hit up my homie right here, whom I met in a very similar setting, and I'm like, yo, can we talk? Because we found out 30 seconds before our talk went live that we grew up like 3 blocks away from each other. So I'm like, yo, like how much more can this get real? And so then I got into, exactly, or the guy in the back. So I started tapping into my relationships, and these are like this community building, but also like being able to take a hold of like where you want to go. I'm tired of seeing like these ideas floating and not getting
Yeah.
referenced, and so then we started building that, and then I realized my friend Frank, they were like, you're gonna need like 50K. And I'm like, oh crap. I thought we could like, print this out. But it costs money, and I really believe in paying people for their skills and whatnot. And so we came out to like at a very conservative number, like 50K. And I'm like, let me hit up my friend at Kickstarter. A friend of mine just became the CEO. Everett Taylor, and I'm like, yo, like I just found out you guys are doing arts. And so they're all like, absolutely. So we worked it out. A few months later, I did a Kickstarter campaign, and we raised like nearly 43K, and within like 30 days. And I found out that even with that, like the money doesn't come to you, it comes from those relationships. So like in Kickstarter, the way it works is that you just reach out to your community and just be like, hey, look, here's my vision. Here's what I believe in. Here's what the work has done. And, my work is about making a mark in society, in the arts. And I would like to make another mark with this book. And so I presented that to a lot of my friends, colleagues, and people that have like really believed in the projects that I've done the last 7 years. And we're able to do that. And I know that's when I learned I will never raise money again like that. But it was tough. It was tough, but it was amazing to have all that support. And we, and that's how I engaged it. Like sort of just getting behind that camera, trying to make sure that you control that narrative a little bit.
So I heard taking over production, taking over your production, crowdsourcing, fundraising for yourself, protecting your IP, and Darryl, I would love to hear. I know you have some things to add to that list for ownership.
Yeah. Let's see. I don't know. There's so much. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about impact investing. And since that's, kind of thematically a deal, I was really, because, I really believe in artists and our ability to scale and problem solve, and not just in like a formal fine art way. Like I think if you put a creative in any sphere, they're going to look around and come up with things because, it's who you are. You're trained to problem solve. And there's so many problems that need solving. And so, but like, how do you sustain that? And so when a mentor of mine is like, hey, look at impact investing, there's billions and billions of dollars of money that says it's to support impact and good. And I was like, oh, great, dope. I know so many people make impact. And then like and then you find out that like that culture isn't part of the thing that the impact investing invests in.
Right.
And then I was just like, man, here we go again. So like, how can you shift that? Which is something that we're really working on because, like culture knits together so many things. And as an artist, you bump into so many things. Like artists get a lot of, blame sometimes for things like gentrification and like kind of coming in, even though I don't think that's actually true. but I'm not going to go off on that. But if you like realize that, sometimes you feel powerless because there's a scale of capital that is needed to like own a block, right? If you want to do that. There's like a scale of capital that's needed to produce larger bodies of work. And a lot of times, particularly in visual arts, the medium of exchange is an object for dollars. And so it's like, how do you get beyond an object for dollars exchange? How do you get exchange of dollars for IP? How do you get, like, particularly in Black culture, where like the culture is profited from via infrastructure in an uncompensated way? And like, so I think what I'm really focused on is getting that larger capital that exists, and then using it to help fund artists and creative businesses, in kind of like that trust-based way where you like believe and you know that, hey, we can go from here to here with this much capital. Because boy, you're talking to someone who's spent 15 years going from here to there with almost access to no capital. And so like the idea that like artists and creatives aren't like worthy investments is baffling to me. So I think doing that gives us the way to have more ownership over our practices and then more impact in our communities.
Artist-led investing funds.
Mm-hmm.
And Ash Studios, I think you mentioned that earlier. Ash Studios physically owning your own buildings.
Yes,
That
we
is
do.
really difficult to do, requiring capital. And then Elisa, you have your whole model as a solution, an potential ownership solution. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, I mean, yes, but I want to also talk a little bit about, it's not only the ownership of your buildings, but I also think that when you, and Darryl touched on this a little bit too about gentrification, I also think, and I see it here in Boston, it's really about, as an artist, about being at the table when the planning is happening, right? I mean, when you see the buildings that are, there's so much change in Boston, and in all of your communities, there's so much change. In all of your communities, you see the developers coming in and building new buildings and all of that that's happening. But what's happening at the city council level? What's happening when those buildings are being built in your communities? And are there artists at the table? And are there people at the table that are saying, like, you know, what's going in at that bottom level? What artists are going in at that bottom level? Are there galleries going in at that bottom level? You know, are there muralists being, you know, considered to be having paintings on those walls? What's the public art space going to be, you know? So we're all worried about the election that's happening in 2024, and we understand that that's really important. But really, the important elections are the elections that are happening in your communities, or that are happening at the school council level, at the school committee level, at the city council level. That's where the differences are going to be happening. That's where the art and the livable spaces are going to be making a difference, and the ownership space is going to be making a difference. Here in Boston, it's those communities, it's those spaces that are up for sale for $5 for whatever they are. There are spaces that are up for sale. Like, who's buying up those spaces that you can create community gardens in and to do public art spaces in? So those are the things that you need to be paying attention to, that artists can take over. And then, you know, and as we were talking about partnerships and networks, I mean, we did a whole film curated series with the Simone Leigh exhibit that was at the ICA. You know, we made that partnership and said, like, let's do a film series around Black artists that had films that were
Testing. Can you hear me on the?
Yep, we can hear you loud and clear.
Check.
So we had screened a series of films about, you know, incredible Black artists that were doing things around tattooing and other things that were perfect, that went with the Simone Leigh exhibit. So like, just making those connections. So as far as, you know, owning your own space, or you know, we're now going to be the film festival in residence at a new space that's getting built in Roxbury, the Greater Roxbury Arts and Culture space that's you know, being invested in Roxbury and Dudley Square. If you don't know Boston, Roxbury is sort of like the Black community in Roxbury that we're desperately trying to hold on to as it starts to get gentrified, and we are doing that with Embrace Boston. If you don't know Embrace Boston, and another developer, Richard Taylor. So we're really excited about that space and are going to be able to use that space to be able to create our own, and that is really important. So that we'll be able to curate that space and do all sorts of things and have shows. And there's a dance company that's going in there as well, and that's really important to make sure that space is constantly curated with our stories, and to continue to train the next generation that's coming up. And so those are the types of things that we can have to continue to do. I mean, and I just want to say something too about investing. I mean, people think of art as sort of like, it's something that you do and isn't that really nice? That's so pretty. And like, what else are you doing? You're coloring and that's really nice. It's like, but it's work. And like you said, it's work. It's a job. It's like, we all should be getting paid what you get paid for in corporate America. I mean, it's like we're creating livable spaces. We're creating communities that people want to live in. If you don't have that art, if you don't have the galleries, if you don't, then the coffee shop next door is not going to open. Like, we create spaces so that people want to be in those spaces and you want to live in those spaces. You should be paid a livable wage for the work that artists are doing. And I think that what Ujima is doing is amazing, that you have the art program and that you're growing that, and it's really that you understand that art is a really important part of what we do, and that Darryl's creating public art in public spaces, and that's really important too, and it's representative of our culture and who we are, and that none of that can go away. You know what I mean? And so I really appreciate that. And as investors, we need more investors who are investing in that and investing in what we're doing, whether it's creating gallery space, whether it's creating film festivals and film programming, whether it's creating murals, whatever it is to be constantly being able to bring in this creative work that's bringing in Black culture, Black and Brown culture into our communities. So I appreciate what Ujima is doing, so thank you.
So shifting power through policy, another solution.
Yes.
Getting artists at the table near policy and in investing decision making, I would say, also to add to that list. Infrastructure building around production, potentially partnerships, I heard, with galleries and museums as currently validated institutions. Tomashi, do you have anything to add to the list?
I'm just thinking about education. I'm thinking about education and culture, and prioritizing, taking it upon ourselves to prioritize art, creativity across the disciplines, of expression. It's a historically ancient natural compulsion that we all have to make a mark, to communicate, to emote, and to listen and to watch and to be seen, to see and be seen by each other, and disassociate and becoming like separated from that as a need, as a natural function of a society.
You know why we're doing that?
Why? Tell us why.
We can tell you.
So it's up to us. You know, Emory Douglas, the Minister of Culture for the Black Panther Party, was 15 years old when he was put in that position. He's still alive, looking young and healthy. He has survived, and he continues to carry that story. So when no one else was doing it for Black people in the city of Oakland, this 15-year-old, organized with other young people, committed to Black possibility, centered culture and communication at the middle of this revolutionary endeavor. So, whether or not we are in places that, fund or value or, show like an established value of creativity, it's still our responsibility to understand that it's valuable, whether or not anybody else is looking.
Yep.
And we can organize ourselves. We're the ones who define that value. Before there's monetary exchange, we're the ones who define that value. And we're the ones who lose when we don't.
Yep.
How much time do we have left?
We're done.
We're
We're getting kicked out.
We're
getting checked. We're actually getting checked now.
1 minute each. I would like just to hear from all of you once. What do you need? What can you offer to everybody in the room? And I'm looking at the artists, like the millions of artists in our crowd. And then what should we all be doing? Well, 1 minute each, real fast. Darryl, you want to go?
I need help raising a $20 million fund
Let's do it.
for creatives, and we should be loving and supporting each other and being kind to each other.
Yes.
I still need to raise 10 more K for my book, and we're doing it.
I don't need anything.
Yeah.
I need more arts education across disciplines for all of us through all of our areas of development. I need us to value what we all do, and I need us all to unlearn devaluing
Yes.
our creative process. I need to stop hearing people say, "Oh, that's nice that you do that, but I can't draw." I need us all to remember that we all
Yeah,
have the
ditto.
compulsion to make the mark
Ditto.
and to express and to be expressed to.
Yeah.
That's what I need.
Ditto. Yeah, I just need everyone. I just need everyone to support art and support creativity and support culture. That's all we need. Yeah. So, thank you all for listening to us.
Yeah, that's right.
And thank you, Franjali, for an amazing moderation. Thank you.
You're great.
Thank you.
You can look on the app for more about their work, but also solutions. Like, I am obsessed with the solutions and thinking about the picture that has been drawn here already. If you all have solutions, whether it's specific organizations, strategies, ideas, please drop them into the app because I'm going to be reading all of them.
Chat.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Anjali.
Thank you.
Thank you, Boston Human Project.
Thank you.